You're listening to the One Man Show Network. Welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast with your host, Aaron Weinbaum.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Weinbaum, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to click the little subscribe button. If you're on Periscope, feel free to hop in and help me pick some fights, and if you're listening to the podcast, you know, I love you all. Anywho, we are here to pick fights for UFC Milwaukee. I have dubbed this Forclosure because this is the last fight card. And as you all know, I am an unbiased fan of Ragin Al Iaquinta for various reasons. This takes place December this weekend. What is the date this weekend? I am having a brain fart here. Anyway, this Saturday, December 15th, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And where is it? What is this called? It's called the Fiserv Forum. So Milwaukee, Shamil Shamazel. All right, cool. And if you get that reference, you're my new best friend. Anywho, we have some fights I got to pick here. First up, we got Jared Flash Gordon, Joaquim Silva. All right, Jared Flash Gordon, friend of the podcast, overcame some drug addiction. Let's go over his last few fights here. All right, tough loss, Carlos Diego Fierro, back in February. Before that, he's got wins over Hercan Diaz, Michael Quinhos, Bill Algeo. He is a Dana White Contender Series alum. We got Joaquim. I want to say Joaquim Phoenix, but it's Joaquim Silva. Lost to Vince Vichel way back in January last year. He's got wins over Reza Medalli, Andrew Holbrook. Ooh, man, this is a tough one. This is 155 pounds. Everyone in this weight division is a killer, but I'm going to go a little emotional here, not just because he's a friend of the podcast, but I got to say this, just having family members that have gone through overcoming drug addiction, that takes a special kind of emotion right there, a special kind of grit for every day having to face that temptation to go back. And if you listen back on the ASW podcast where I had Jared Gordon, you can go to my aaronsayswhat.com. You can look that right up. I believe it was the last podcast I did on that particular podcast. He talks about how he used his drug addiction to, basically he just overcame that to become a professional athlete, to change his discipline, to change everything about himself. And I think I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say this gives him the edge. This is going to give him the edge in this fight. And I say that I see Jared Flash Gordon wins this fight. And I hope it's in an impressive fashion because I want to see him become a contender. I want to see him become a contender in this weight class. It's already full of killers. Here we have Jim Miller against Charles Oliveira. Now, Jim Miller, man, to call him a journeyman, it's not doing him justice. I mean, this guy has been around forever. I mean, golly, he's been fighting in the UFC since 2008. That's 10 years, 10 plus years. His last fight, I picked against him, and he ended up just creaming Alex White with a rear naked choke in round one. Before that, he loses to Dan Hooker, who's also on this card. Before that, he loses to Francisco Trinaldo. Before that, he loses to Anthony Pettis. Before that, he loses to Dustin Poirier. So the last one before that was when Thiago Alves badly missed weight, November 2016. And he was in a nice little win streak before that. He's overcome some things. I know that. I know he has Lyme disease, and he's had to overcome that. Very, very, very talented submission grappler, but he's on the tail end. And then you got Charles Oliveira. He's not my favorite fighter because, well, he's just had a lot of weight issues at 145. Now, he's fighting 155 pounds, which I believe is his right weight class. Let's see here. When was the last time he made 145 pounds? It's been a long time ago. Yeah. Okay, so a catch weight with Miles Jury back December 2015, which he won. He loses to Anthony Pettis. And that was also, I think that was the only time Anthony Pettis made 145 pounds. He loses to Ricardo Lamas, which had to be a catch weight back in November 2016. He had a nasty win against Will Brooks. I remember that back in April 2017. Lost to Paul Felder December last year. But he's on a 2-fight win streak, Clay Guida and Christos Giagos. So, wow. I picked against Jim Miller last time. I regretted that. Man, this is tough. This is a real tough one. I'm going with I think this is the test for Oliveira. Is he going to be a contender at 155 pounds? Because Jim Miller can keep up the best of them. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'm going with Jim Miller, man. I'm not 100% confident in that decision, but for sure I'm going for Jim Miller. Yeah, Jim Miller. How about that? I think he's gonna do it. Let's do it for the old guys, Jim. Next up, Rob Font versus Sergio Pettis. All right, Rob Font's last fight was a loss to Rafael Alonso, July this year. Before that, he has wins over Thomas Almeida, Pedro Munoz, he loses to October last year, and a bunch of wins. Yeah, he's got a couple wins before that. And then we're going back a little bit here. Now, Sergio Pettis, this is a curious case. Are the flyweights on the way out? I don't know. So very smartly, he is fighting at 135 pounds after just fighting flyweight, in October. So, interesting. But here's the crazy thing. Sergio has a win over Joseph Benavidez. He lost to Henry Cejudo. He was out-grappled. And before that, he's got some wins over Moreno, John Moraga. Man, but it's a little baffling to me that he's 135 pounds because I want to say the last time he was 135 pounds, we're going way back here. I believe, excuse me, it was Alex Caceres, and he lost in the third rear naked choke. Yeah, and for those of you that don't know who Alex Caceres is, he is the nickname Bruce Leroy. And if you've ever seen The Last Dragon, which happens to be the first movie I've ever owned digitally. Yes, that's dating me a little back here, and it was back when Amazon first started offering the service. Anyway, off subject. Rob Font, Sergio Pettis. I think Rob's too big, too strong. It's going to be a little bit what we saw Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valentina Shevchenko. It's just going to be a little too much for him. I hope in the end somehow the flyweights end up staying, but Sergio's making the move. He's going 135. He may see the writing on the wall. So I'm not sure how Rob Font's going to finish, but Font's going to be bold. All right, cheap joke there. I got Rob Font. All right, Edson Barboza, Dan the Hangman Hooker. Wow. This is a fight I'm excited about here. Edson Barboza, he, of course, last famously fought Kevin Lee. Everyone just keeps showing that same highlight over and over again where he kicks Kevin Lee, and Kevin Lee gets wobbly, and he takes him down. I had to take a drink there, sorry. Man, that was just one moment in that fight. Okay, Kevin Lee was winning that fight just about the whole time, and his last fight before that could be Nurmagomedov, a decision. Before that, he's got wins over Benil Dariush, Gabriel Melendez, Anthony Pettis, and a loss to Tony Ferguson way back in 2015. Now, Dan the Hangman Hooker. Lots of green, lots of wins. Hasn't lost since Jason Knight, November 2016. Over 2 years ago. Has wins over Ross Pearson, Jim Miller, Gilbert Burns. Woo! This is tough because if you look at Edson Barboza, he's beaten some more top name types, but he's also had his loss to Michael Johnson, who's now fighting 145 pounds. This is definitely a fight I would not bet on, not in a million years. This looks, yeah, on paper this looks difficult. I mean, man, you want to look at Dan Hooker's wins and not as impressive as some of Edson's. I'm going to pick Edson Barboza. Everyone else is picking Dan Hooker. I think Edson for the upset. Now, the main event of the evening. Al Iaquinta, Long Island sweetheart and the world's most dangerous real estate agent versus Kevin Motown Phenom Lee. Man, I just watched. I'm not known for doing my not known for doing my research, but I just watched their first fight again. First round rather. Al clearly won. Kevin went for that takedown. Al locked in that nasty heel hook. And it was just kind of a grappling thing from there. Second round was Al overcommitting to a right. Kevin Lee getting him down. It was a beautifully timed takedown. And he was fighting for the rear naked choke, where Al had the great defense. Anyone else at any time could have tapped. Probably Conor McGregor would have tapped, right? Who knows? But then it was curious. That third round, going into that third round, Kevin, who at the time was 21, this fight was over 4 years ago. At the time he was 21, he was in that corner. He was talking to his corners like, this guy's good, and it was almost like he was broken after winning a round, and it was a little bit strange. And the third round I thought was super close. Al won, obviously, but this just goes to how much have these guys improved in 4 years. Now Kevin Lee, I think he won some fights with his mouth. Or got some fights, rather, with his mouth. But nasty win over Edson Barboza with the doctor stoppage. Round 5. That was back in April. For that, he loses to Tony Ferguson. He has staph. Michael Chiesa, he wins. Francisco Ronaldo, a win. Magnov Nastavev, a win. Jake Matthews, a win. Efrain Escardo. He lost a weird one to Leonardo Santos back in... this is 3 years ago now. So really, he's, besides Leonardo, who I haven't heard of since, he's lost some really good guys. And how much has he grown? But more importantly than that, how is the weight cut? How's the weight cut affected him? Because he almost didn't make weight for his interim title match with Tony Ferguson, and he did not make weight against Edson Barboza. Now, he says he has a nutrition coach, same guy that got Cormier down to 205, which I guess it would have to be Daniel Leith, or it'd have to be the George Larkart group. You got Al. Al's been a bit more inactive than I would like to see. He's had some injuries and whatnot, but the guy always trains. Now, I'm not going to say we're best friends or anything, but just from the news outlets and his Instagrams and whatnot, the guy trains a lot. And you don't see a lot out of Kevin Lee, on social media. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but Al trains. Al's getting better. If Al can't run, Al swims. He does, but he's doing some out-of-the-box shit. Everyone made fun of Conor McGregor back in the day when he had a movement coach. Well, now you have Ragin Al Iaquinta, who goes to the sports science lab. He does a lot of hand-eye stuff that nobody does. And he trains one of the best teams on the planet, Sarah Longo. So, how is he going to be? And let's not forget, he went 5 against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, so did Edson Barboza. But here's the thing. He did this fight on short notice. Now, he was fighting that night already but he was fighting against a striker. I mean, it was only 3 rounds. So it's a big, big difference. Khabib's strategy is always the same. Take you down, pound you out. But, this is because he can do it. He's the best at it. When Al stuffed some takedowns, Al looked good. He had some moments, and he got tired. Kevin Lee, last Al Iaquinta fight, got tired. Kevin Lee in the Ferguson fight got tired. And you can blame that on staff or whatever. But I think he's probably going to push a little more than Edson Barboza did. Al's got that forward pressure. Al, it's hard to put Al away. Man. But let's look at this. So Al loses against Khabib. He wins against Diego Sanchez, Uche Masvidal, the famous Boomy FU speech. And he wins against Joe Lozon, Ross Pearson, Rodrigo Guinan. Loses to Mitch Clark. That was kind of a heartbreaker. And, all these fights don't matter before that. They're years ago. And then, listen. You may think I'm betting with emotion. I'm not betting. Not betting. Picking with emotion. But maybe I am. But I think Iaquinta has this, man. I think the guy is underrated. The guy is totally underrated. I mean, it's like when Max Holloway all of a sudden was the underdog against Ortega. They confuse his inactiveness for deterioration of skill, which was not the case. He just happened to have some unfortunate circumstances where he couldn't fight. So I think Iaquinta, not to be too specific, I think he's going to take Kevin Lee down and make him say escrow. He's going to tap him out. He's going to sell him a house, and he's going to send him back to an apartment. That's what I think is going to happen. So those are my picks for UFC Milwaukee. And that's all I got today, man. Sorry for the shorter podcast, but hey, you know where to find me. AaronSaysWhat.com. And thank you again for listening. And until next time, shalom.
Please remember to support the podcast by visiting the affiliate links on AaronSaysWhat.com.
Are you looking for a permanent home for your podcast? Well, Spreaker can do it all. Spreaker will give you your own RSS feed that you can submit to other platforms, including iTunes. Spreaker's mobile app will let you record from your smartphone, or you can use their web-based console with everything you need to record. Their podcasting plans include being able to host multiple shows at no extra charge. Got a YouTube channel? Spreaker's got you covered. You can effortlessly upload your podcast audio to your channel. You can even move your current podcast to Spreaker without losing any of your iTunes subscribers. Try any plan 30 days for free using promo code ASW.